the exciting thing about going live is when the red button appears at the top of the screen, and I'm praying and hoping
people
that
are there.
A, you've got your clothes on this time, Alan. That would be a bonus. And B, when you're not saying anything inappropriate at the start of the thing, which is something that I would never ever do, and I've never ever said anything inappropriate at the start or the end, or indeed the middle of anything. However, this is something that you do have previous convictions for. What explanation can you give?
The current explanation, I don't know if you can see, my hair is getting ridiculously long and I've grown a big beard. I think my friends say I'm turned 10% caveman. So that is the explanation. I'm 10% caveman and you never know what's going to happen next.
10% caveman. Only 10%. Well, I think this percentage is probably going to go up. And if anyone that's tuning in right now will be saying, oh, look, there's Alan turning up in scruffy t-shirts again. But here is an exceptionally well-dressed guest, Ken from Humble Penny. Ken, it's brilliant to see you. How are you doing? I'm great. Like I said to you before, I've literally run out of clean t-shirts. So this is my backup. This is literally my backup. In the event, I believe you. I reckon you're this well dressed at home all the time, doing the hoovering, the gardening. Exactly. This is how I wake up. It's absolutely brilliant to have you here. I think we've actually spoken more times on video calls than we have in real life, because the last time I saw you was at our event in Paddington in central London. Yes, Paddington Works. With that's right, and with Alan's FI meetup and presentations and so on. So it's fantastic that you've joined us again for this, and you're a sort of a mild veteran of pop-up business schools as well, Ken, because you've been to a couple of our events. Yes, I love all of what you guys do. I love the philosophy. I love the concept. I love the culture. So whenever I'm called, I show up. And Paddington was a lot of fun. Really vibrant, full of lots of energy and lots of good people there as well. So pleased to be here tonight. Thank you very much. Is this why you've called your website thehumblepenny.com? Because you're always very, very humble and you always say incredibly nice things about PopUp. So the feeling's entirely me. Alan introduced me to you over the email about 2 years ago, something like that. Yeah. I can't remember. Yeah. Alan, how did you come across Ken? How did you stumble across his website? I think actually, Ken, didn't you hear me on one of the podcasts? Yes, I did. I heard you on the Choose FI podcast. Choose FI. Yes. Yeah, I think you were on with Barney, if I remember correctly. Quite an early episode. Yeah. Yes, did an episode of Choose FI with Barney. That was great fun. And then you sent an email and say, let's have breakfast. Yep. And I think that's my favorite meal ever. So I was like, yes, let's have breakfast. Yes. And you came out to Kent to meet me. Where were we? Was it Maidstone? I can't remember now. It was Maidstone. Our first event in Maidstone. We had a Greasy Spoon Cafe breakfast together. Very, very healthy. And we just made friends instantly. Yeah, it was fun. Katie, most pop-up business schools start with a decent breakfast of some description, I think. That's how every day should start. Yeah. So look, there's 3 topics of conversation that we're going to dive into tonight. Well, that's the plan anyway. And as you know, we tend to meander our way around these things and it might go in a completely different direction. But I think the 3 things that we wanted to explore with you, Ken, and I've really enjoyed reading your website and watching some of the videos. And actually it was brilliant to refresh my memory as well, knowing that you were coming on. So I think that the 3 areas that we were going to explore, the first is blogging. Yep. And just your experiences of blogging and some of those things that perhaps you might do differently if you were starting today, based on all of the success that you've had with Humble Penny. And it would be fantastic to dive into some of that. I know that you've moved into delivering online courses through a membership offer and adding value to people every month, or all around the topic of money. And that was the third thing, having you and Alan to sort of bounce around some stuff about financial independence. And I know that obviously the times that at the moment money is super important to people, and I wondered, it'd be really cool to explore with you if you're doing anything differently as a result of what's happened, and we'll chat with Alan about that as well. And then if you don't like any of those topics and we have more fun going in a different direction, I think there's a reasonable chance we might go off course a bit, especially with Alan Donegan, who's just where you are on my screen at the moment, Alan. You're the cherry on top, because I'm in the middle of an Alan Ken sandwich. That's an unexpected sentence to start.
That's quite funny.
I don't know what's wrong with me this evening. I think it's this green stuff. I've been on the green stuff tonight, and I think it's going to my head.
And
Alan, you look
Ken
perplexed.
That sounds very, very interesting.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Ken. Look, we said you a warm welcome. It's probably slightly warmer than we were expecting, but look, let's jump into this, because I'm super fascinated that you arrived in the UK at the age of 14, and something on your website says that your first country taught you business resilience. Can you talk to that for a moment? Because I think business resilience is something that we all need in giant helpings at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think about that from a kind of a really personal perspective. So as a bit of background, I moved to the UK when I was 14. So the UK is the first other country that I'd ever lived in. So quite a big culture shock for me, because it's a very different world when you move to the UK if you're not from this country already. Very, very different. So to give you an idea, from a resilience perspective, I was already used to a different type of life in Lagos, where I'd come from in Nigeria. So, for example, I was very accustomed to not having running water to have a bath, for example. You might have to go and fetch some water from, you might have to walk, 3 kilometers to go to a building somewhere to fetch water in a bucket to then come back and then have your bath, for example. Or you might not have kind of regular electricity, to kind of process and do life and that sort of stuff. And money was not something that existed in abundance, because that was just the way life was. You just didn't have the comforts that we have in our current world. Even now, even with the current situation, there are still safety nets that exist today that a lot of people from other parts of the world, from where I came from, for example, couldn't rely on. There was no, kind of, health system, which, we might say our health system, of course, is under a lot of pressure now, but at least it still exists, over there in that part of the world. There wasn't a health system, for example, they do rely on. So you got used to essentially seeking survival every single time. You had to find a way to put food on your table. You would just not, it's either you essentially ate what you killed, and that was the culture. There was nobody coming to your rescue. There was no trust fund, for you to inherit. There was no, nothing essentially for you to say, this is a thing that I'm waiting for to kind of help me move my life forward. So what that meant was that when I moved to the UK, although life was extremely challenging, because when I moved to the UK, we didn't have all the nice little documents ticked away, waiting for us to start life, as some of the people coming from other parts of the world, maybe from Europe, for example, might have had. So that meant we had a different type of challenge. But what that also meant was that we were, although we had those challenges, I felt I almost had almost wired for that, because we'd come from an environment that was a lot more difficult, the terrain was not as smooth, as it were. So you'd come in and you felt that, although people are complaining and things are quite difficult, I can kind of find a way to navigate this country and find a way to survive here. And then after some time, if I found a way to survive, I can then hopefully begin to thrive. And so for me, I must think of my journey in two halves, as that initial survival phase where I'm trying to get used to the culture, I'm trying to learn the language, I'm watching the TV channels and I'm repeating the words so I can learn how they speak in their usual country language. I'm trying to understand how I can kind of almost integrate myself into this country, find myself some money, work with my parents, my sisters, my brother, to find ourselves essentially food to get through our livelihoods, and then over time start to work towards a plan of potentially thriving. And that's where kind of FI, much later on, a few years later, actually came into my life. So resilience for me, essentially from a personal perspective, essentially means that I came from a place where life was very different. So coming in here, I felt I had essentially the raw materials to kind of operate here in a different way.
Amazing. And I know that Alan's had some experiences in South America. I wonder if some of those experiences gave you a learning experience. I'm going to ask Alan about that in a second. But firstly, I just wanted to quickly comment that you should see the look on my kids' faces when we run out of Oreo biscuits. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm doing them any favors by giving them the stuff that I didn't have growing up. But respect to you for that, Ken. And what an incredible learning experience you've had, although you probably didn't realize it so much at the time, perhaps. But yeah, no. Alan, what did South America teach you about resilience?
Well, I think the first experience was noticing actually the differences between the UK. I went to Costa Rica and I was doing a volunteer project in San Jose, the capital city. Right. And we were using soccer to engage the kids from the slums and then teaching them English by self when they were having fun. And seeing the houses, the way people lived, like Ken said, the lack of electricity, water, and different things, it definitely made you feel very grateful for what you have in England. And also the realization that actually the people of Costa Rica are some of the happiest people in the world. And those people may not have had much in terms of what we think of as in nice homes and fancy tech and all that stuff, but they knew how to be happy. They actually knew how to have fun and have love and share food. And I think that was probably the first time I realized there is not a correlation between the amount of stuff you have in your life and the happiness you have in life. More stuff does not equal happiness. And there's something else there that you need to work on that is not getting the latest iPhone or a new car. There's something completely different.
Try telling that to my kids, Alan. Like, if you can you ring them up? You've got Jacob's number? Give him a call for me and tell him it's not about the iPhone, son. No, it's not about the iPhone 28 or whatever it is.
It feels like it is at that age. At that age, it does feel like if you don't have the latest tech, you're not cool at school. And I felt like that. For
sure. Just wanted to say hello to some folk that have joined us. And very politely, they're saying hello to you, Ken, which is wonderful.
Oh, hello. Hello.
We've got Graham Carter from down in Portsmouth.
Hey.
We've got Oliver After Dark. Great to see him back here. We've got some travel hackers that have arrived. We've got John, the pastor from Windhoek, Namibia, is watching again this evening. Great to see you, John.
Hi,
Lisa
John.
Cornwall. Roy is here. John MB, Danielle, Clive. Looks like the Wales Mafia have joined us. Alan Evans is here. And Laura says she misses you, Alan. Kim Pickering and Russell and Teresa, great. So, and Jenny as well. Great to see everybody here. The questions, and Kerry as well. Hi, Kerry. The questions that I'd love you to ask, and stick the questions in the comments. Tell me, what questions do you have for Ken? Now, there's 3 subjects that we're going to cover. One of them is money. We're going to dive into money shortly because, incredibly, at the age of 34, Ken was able to say, I don't think I need to go to work anymore because I've been smart with money. I don't know about you, but I'm dying to ask Ken. Look, it's a little bit late for me, of course, to retire at 34. I know I don't look it, but I am actually a little way past 34 now, everybody. So hopefully Ken will ask. Yeah. Thank you, Ken. Ken, if Jack will be listening, let's make sure we invite Ken back very quickly. So questions about money. How did Ken retire at the age of 34? Maybe you've got some ideas about investing. Maybe you're at the first rung of the ladder, and Ken's area of expertise is helping people and families think about money differently and make some really good money decisions. Maybe you're someone that wants to write a blog and you're interested in how to make money out of blogging. Alan's got some experiences to share there, and so has Ken. And also about delivering online courses, which is something that you've moved into recently and perhaps moved past and have gone on to the next thing, which is super interesting. So if you have any questions about money or about blogging, and Jack, if he hasn't done so already, he has done so. There's a link to Ken's website in the thread. So please fire those questions in and we'll do our best to answer them and put Ken on the spot. I know he likes really difficult questions. So Ken, what happened, when you reached the world of work, what was the day job for you? And at what point did you realize that you could do things differently with money than perhaps what a lot of your peers were doing? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I have kind of informal work, so work that I used to do many years ago, and I've shared a fair bit of this on YouTube. For those of you who are interested, check it out on YouTube. I've done some videos about my work background. But formally, I started work as a chartered accountant. In 2006, I started to train. I got a training contract and I was like, yay, I've done something that no one in my family's ever done. I've got a training contract to train as an accountant in the UK. Can you believe that? Anyway, so I'd started this journey, and I've always been quite into kind of focusing and being quite geeky when it comes to kind of doing the work that needs to be done. So I finished my training contract fairly early, about 9 months earlier than I should have, in the summer of December 2008. And around that time, I qualified on paper. And then I needed to wait and do my kind of practical exams, practical experience to show that I'm basically qualified to become a chartered accountant. So I started, and then life has been since then about pursuing my career and trying to move my way up. And so the world of work has been, I've worked mainly in finance, mainly in an area known as investment management. So I've always worked in companies that were entrepreneurial and investing in companies. And I've basically grown in my career. So I've gone from qualified accountant to financial controller, to head of finance, finance director, chief financial officer. So I've kind of just, gone up. And obviously with that comes increases in income, changes in the type of income you receive, bonuses, share options, that sort of stuff. But as my income went up, and this is the critical bit, I kept my lifestyle not moving up that much. Okay, this is the big bit. So in 2008/9, I met my wife in October 2009, and we started the journey, the money journey together, after I read the book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I met my wife at a Rich Dad, Poor Dad property investing seminar. She had been
Smart
there.
move.
She'd shown up to come and talk about property investing. And we met there. We were of the same mindset around investing in assets, to use that to kind of free us up to kind of pursue a different life. So for me, I started thinking about money very differently in 2008/9. And throughout that time, as many people who probably started investing around that period would have known, obviously we had a massive bull market. Lots of people invested money. I started investing in property. And then through that, as time passed, as my income increased, and as I invested in small businesses with my family members, you'd make some money. And then I started to put that money towards investing in the stock market. Okay, and obviously that's had a really good time over 10 years and that sort of stuff. And with that, with increases in income, increases in savings, putting money towards various other assets, whilst also trying the entrepreneurial route myself, I've been able to kind of get myself to a place, I was in 2017, to a place where I could look back and actually say, well, actually, at this point in time, the income coming in from my investments actually far exceed my essential living expenses, the bits I need to kind of live and so on. And I now have that option, that's very important, that option of early retirement if I wanted it. So that's the background.
Ken, that's absolutely fascinating. And I'm really curious because I want to bring Alan in here because I find it super fascinating that your decision-making process, as a result of no doubt the seminar and the book, your decision was to do the opposite of what I'm pretty sure almost every single one of your colleagues and contemporaries was doing. Because I'm thinking to myself, oh, the salary's going up. Happy days, time for the BMW. Alan, tell me, what your relationship with money as your income grew. So as your business grew after you started that, your training business, how did you respond to income going up, and at what point did that change? I'm interested to know what the change, the turning point for you in terms of thinking differently about money was, and how far down that conventional route had you taken, if at all?
So I was actually quite fortunate because I've seen a lot of people who've gone a long way down the conventional route. They've bought bigger houses, bigger cars. They find out about this stuff and then they have to unwind all the stuff they've done, which happened to one of my friends, Carl, Mr. 1500. He had exactly that and then had to unwind. And that can be a more painful process. Fortunately, Katie and I were still in the 2-bed flat we bought at the start. So we just stayed there. I did have to unwind a slightly more expensive car, and I went way too cheap. I brought a Citroen, never buy French. Maybe that was a joke, but it was a terrible car. And I think that I was quite lucky. I didn't go too far down the path, but I think my experience growing up was that we didn't have a lot of money because my dad, all that story, everyone knows that. We didn't have much money. So I held on and was just a saver. I was like, I just need this money in a bank account so I can feel secure that if something goes wrong, I've got cash to buy food. Food is very important to me and I like it and I want more of it. And if I don't have that money saved, it's not going to work. So I was always, as much as I can, keep costs down and save. But I think that just came from the childhood experience of not having enough.
It's funny, Simon, it's just thinking about that. And for me, what I think made me think of this stuff differently was not really because I came across the book and went to the conference. It was more that the book and the conference represented a vehicle of change in my life, i.e., I'd never come across anyone in my journey in my life so far who'd said to me, well, actually, if you did these things, this particular way, or if you went down this particular pathway, there's a massive promise ahead. You could potentially change the game generationally for your family. Like, that had never occurred to me. I'd never come across that anywhere ever before. And that was that's why when I talk about that book and other books, that was really a mindset shift, because it was like, whoa, hang on. So what you're saying to me is that if I took some of the money I come across today and some of the money I'll make in the future, but made different decisions around that money, I could potentially give myself a different life outcome, right? For me, that was almost like someone had handed me a blueprint for, this is how you do life differently to the way your parents did it.
Yes, and I think that particular book, there's a statement in there that says, buy small liabilities and buy big assets. And that book fundamentally changed what Katie and I were thinking to do. And Robert Kiyosaki helped us decide to buy a 2-bed flat in Basingstoke instead of a bigger house. And then we took the difference and invested it. And that exact book had the same impact on us, was buy small liabilities and spend the rest on assets.
Yeah, I love this stuff. And actually, we've had a comment. I just want to talk to one particular comment from Caitlin Toth before we move on to the next bit, because Caitlin suggested that that we shouldn't be promoting Robert Kiyosaki because he's a con artist. And there are lots of negative comments about, not in this thread, but just generally that people have had bad experiences from free seminars that do the heavy sell. You kind of get enticed in for something and so on. How did you inoculate yourself against that sort of stuff? Did you experience that? And I think my approach to these things is to go in there with my eyes open, take the bits that work for me and ignore the rest. Yeah. But what was your approach?
Yeah, so let's just talk to that for a minute. I attended the free seminar. I went along because for me, in fact, I'd had a bad breakup. So for me, the seminar was like my way out. There's nothing for me to do. And for the weekend, I thought, I'm going to go learn about property investing. There's nothing for me to lose. And I haven't got money to give anybody right now. So I'm just going to go and learn what they've got and then see where life takes me. And for me, for me, that life took me in a different path because I met the partner, my life partner, and then started this journey towards investing. It just happened that I'd read this particular book. And of course, since then, I've read many books, many other books that have helped me kind of form my life philosophy and kind of help me kind of understand the things that I'm trying to optimize my life for. So I completely get the people who are making the comments about this particular individual. That's fine, but I attended the free seminar and it was quite good for me. So yeah.
Well, I think I'm going to bring Alan in here on this one. I just want to make the comment that only a financial independence expert would spend no money on a weekend event and meet his life partner. I just want to admire that.
I went to Pret. I've got to admit, I went to Pret.
Oh, you went to Pret. Okay, that must have been at least a £4 investment. Alan, what do you think about this stuff, about the free seminar business model? And you've experienced a whole bunch of these, as I have. What's your take on this?
So I think people get very het up over something is either very bad or very good. And they get very het up on they're either a scam artist completely or they're not. Like some of these places charge a fortune for courses, and I've been on them. I've paid for it. Some I got value from, some I didn't.
Yeah.
And they're not. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like Robert Kiyosaki, I went to one of his 3-day courses. I actually loved his book, but seeing him on stage, I thought he was dreadful. He mocked people who were bad with money and lost their money in the financial recession, and I hated his presentation. But I think what you've got to remember here with any of these things is there is elements of value. He wouldn't be someone we're talking about if there wasn't some elements of value somewhere. Yeah. Take what you can from the book that's £6 that has a positive impact on your life, and don't go to the course. And we're not actually promoting him. I'm definitely promoting his book. His book's excellent. His courses, not so much, but take what you can. Everyone knows we're a big fan of doing things for free. That's the whole pop-up business school model. And if you can pay £6 for a book and learn a lifelong lesson like I did, that is absolutely worth it.
I think that's a great comment. Look, so we've had a couple of questions here where people are looking at what they can do to support themselves, either their families, in terms of making decisions about money. There's a question here from Laurie, who says, she's asking, what advice can I give my 23-year-old daughter about investing now so that she can break the negative money cycle? So we've got a 23-year-old daughter. She's got an opportunity to invest some money. Where do we start? And I guess based on your experience, but maybe with a sort of a thought about the times that we're in now, would that alter the advice that you would give if we were in normal times? What do you think about that, Ken? Where would we start there? What questions do we need to ask?
First of all, I'd say, if you're 23, I'm just completely jealous of you because I wish I was 23, and I wish I had a Facebook Live that I was listening to at the age of 23, where I could ask a question about investing. So first of all, the big asset you have by being 23 is the asset of time, because you have the opportunity for time potentially to work for you. So what I would say to someone who's 23 right now is think about investing as something that's really for the long term. So there'll be a ton of people now panicking, running for the hills, and that sort of stuff. Think about anything you're doing now, anything you're committing money to, whether it's you're investing in the stock market or whether it's you're investing in a business opportunity potentially. Think about it from a long-term perspective. So, and I'd say spend some time actually understanding what investing actually means. So what's this marketplace of a stock market everybody talks about? What happens there? What kind of stuff can I buy to kind of minimize the risk that I might be exposed to as an individual? Can I buy funds? What are funds? What do they mean? Can I buy shares? If I do, what risk do I face? And that sort of stuff. And then gradually, when you spend time learning, and there's so much stuff many platforms you can learn from, lots of really good books, YouTube channels, what have you. Spend the time actually understanding. And then once you've understood, then depending on your levels, kind of attitude to risk, I'd say start small just to ease yourself into it, okay? You might want to start with, say, £100 per month. You might want to maybe then gradually increase that. But the key, though, with investing and making it really work for you in the future is to do it consistently, no matter the weather. Okay, that's really the key. Because what most people tend to do is they say, well, actually, I want to start investing, but I'm kind of waiting for the bottom of the market or something like that. Yeah. And what you find is that there's no, you know, and I think, remember my Barney had read it, Facebook post he put saying something about, you know, there's nobody ringing a bell to tell you when we've got to the bottom of the market. It doesn't exist. So spend some time understanding, and then once you start investing, just do it consistently, starting quite small. And I'd say at the age of 23, you really want to invest in things that expose you to sufficient risk for you to generate enough of a return over time. So you really want more of an exposure to equities, such that as time passes and all the volatility, the movements, all the noise that's kind of moved along over time, you can then gradually see your money working for you.
Alan, there's a sale on, isn't there? Tell us about the sale.
Well, just before we go to the sale, there's actually, so the one thing I've learned, Ken has given a fantastically simple example. Even within that that explanation, there's words like equities and stocks and shares, and there's actually a language of investing. And one of the best things you can do at that stage is learn the language of investing, learn the language of finance, dividends, equities, stocks and shares, index funds. There's all these different terms, and you actually need to become conversational in the language of finance so that you can talk to people about this and learn. So for me, let's learn the language, because I think so many people are scared of getting involved because they just don't understand the terms, and they'll hear equities and go, what's an equity and how's it different from a stock and share? And okay, I'm not going to do any of this. Yeah. So number one, let's speak the language.
Yes.
And that's probably the best place to start. Yes. Number two, is there a sale on? When stocks and shares tumble, the price goes down dramatically. It dropped about 25% initially around this coronavirus thing. And you're getting the stocks and shares at 25% if you buy them at that stage. So when the rest of the world is going, the world is collapsing, sell everything.
Yeah.
If you can be confident enough to buy, there's an incredible opportunity. And I was saying that to you, Simon. Stocks and shares are on share. When are we going to do this? Let's do this.
You know, I really want to talk to your thing about language, Alan. That was the one thing that, I mean, even with a brother, I'm gonna make sure, if my brother's not watching, I'm gonna make sure I play this back to him, because my brother went into banking at the age of 16, and he's been involved in finance. He's been managing his own pension for 25 years. And the language of investing scared me because I didn't understand it. And I think that is just such fantastic advice. But I guess, and there's a couple of people on the thread that are asking for some book recommendations from you guys. I think I just want to get to the next level of detail here, because we can say, you know, let's make sure that we understand more about what it means to invest. That's great advice, makes perfect sense. And Alan, you're kind of adding to that next level to go, well, let's get to understand the language of investing, so that, you know, if we understand what it means to invest and the different kinds of investment, and we understand the language, then that knowledge is power. But where do we go to understand these things? Because, you know, isn't there a risk here that we're going to come across some information that's wrong, or that's information and advice that's given with an ulterior motive? Where do you guys, what books do you read? What blogs do you read, other than your own? Obviously, we're going to come on to that shortly. In order to get, you know, where does Ken and Alan go to get their financial information, advice, and insight? And by the way, Ken, people are loving your bookcase, so I guess you get to go first.
Well, there are some really good books. I think this is quite a good book. Smarter Investing. It's a really good book by Tim Hale. It's a very good book for investing. This is also a very good book for investing, if anybody's interested. There's also Jim's book, which is
The Simple Path to Wealth.
Yeah. This is also a fantastic book for investing. Fantastic.
It's an incredible book.
So there are many books to read. There's also another one called The Little Book of Common Sense Investing, which you might want to check out. But those books are very good books to check out if you want to kind of learn in very simple language what investing is about. Okay, from a book perspective, there are obviously other resources you can check out as well.
Of course. How about you, Alan? I know that J.L. Collins' Simple Path to Wealth will be on your list for sure.
It's absolutely on my list, and I paid a lot of money to fly out to a conference to go and hear him speak, and met him, and ended up I run events with him. But that book, like, ignore the chapters on American tax, just skip them. If you're English, you do not need them. But the theories and the language and the simple way he explains it, and really his advice, if you were to sum it up in a sentence, is buy a broad-based index fund and hold it forever.
Forever, very simple.
That's it. And
just to mention, the reason he does that is because it's a very cheap way to get exposure to potentially high performing assets over time. So
yes, and that Katie and I heard his advice. We'd read a lot of other books. We worked out that his advice was excellent compared with other books, and we just went all in on that strategy, and it's been an incredible strategy for us. Incredible strategy. So that's the next level of detail down, Simon, is those broad-based index funds. Other places to go. Mr. Money Mustache rocked our world with his blog posts and his ideas. Yep, absolutely. And then 2 podcasts, which I love. The Mad Fientist. The guy's name's Brandon, lives up in Edinburgh. He's just a really genuinely nice human, and his podcast is great. And then the other one, it has more of an American bent, because most of the content producers, except really Barney and Ken and a few others, are from America. And it's Choose FI, Choose Financial Independence, with Brad and Jonathan. Great podcast. Start some of the early episodes, skip the ones on American tax, but a lot of it is relevant to what we're doing. You just need a slight translation tool that a 401k is a pension or a SIP, and a 401...
Alan, my eyes are glazing over now. I know this is really important information, but I've got a very short attention span with these things. I've got 2 questions. One of them's come from Rob, which I'm going to fire at you in a second. Just before we answer that question, Alan, you've always explained your broad-based index fund thing really well to me and the team when you've been just sharing your and Katie's journey about money. Just on this thing about language and understanding the language, can you give us a 15-second? What's the difference? What is that, and what does it mean, and what's different to me jumping on with a stockbroking website and buying shares in Apple? What's the difference between the two?
So when you buy Apple, you're buying one company. When you buy an index fund, let's say you buy the American total stock market, you're buying about 3,500 companies. So you are putting your money and spreading it across an entire market, as opposed to gambling one company will be successful. So you are diversified in a broad way. We actually buy one that diversifies across the world. That's the difference. One is picking one company and gambling. The other is picking an entire market and going, I think this country or this market will do well.
Beautifully done. Right. There's a great question here from Rob. I think we'll deal with this question, and then I want to jump into blogging and online courses. We've had a few questions about that as well, Ken. So the question from Rob, it's almost the opposite challenge to the question from Laurie. So Rob is saying at 53, he's in a fortunate position to be debt-free, which is amazing.
Excellent.
He's got a public sector pension that's building nicely, But what financial advice, what sort of things could you be suggesting that Rob looks at if he wants to retire at 60? What sort of thoughts go through your mind about Rob's position and how it perhaps might differ from Laurie's daughter?
Oh, okay.
And should we go to a casino? What do you think, Alan?
Say something, will you?
I got a couple of early thoughts. Number one is government pensions work differently from a lot of other pensions. So I would be looking at what you can get at the different points, and they'll do you a prediction to say at age 55, you'll get this, 58, you'll get this, 60, you'll get that, and seeing what those numbers are. And if your projected numbers, well, like how much do you spend each year? And based on, well, if you'll get X at 60, let's just for sake of numbers, you need 40 grand a year to live on. But at 60, if you retire a bit early, you get 35 through your government pension. We've got a 5K gap that you've got to make up through other investments. And I would be doing those sums to work out what's that gap between the government pension, what I spend, and then I would look at other investments to plug that gap so that I could live and retire early. That's the basic mathematics of that situation.
I think Rob's got a spreadsheet coming on. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that, Ken? I've got another couple of questions that are right up your street, I think.
Yes, I was just going to say it's a matter of filling a money gap, but also considering whether you could potentially simplify your lifestyle a little bit more, such that you might not need to work so hard to fill that gap, because that might be an alternative way of doing it. Okay.
I love that. A combination of those two things could really help Rob get to where he needs to get to. I've got a lovely question from the amazing Helen Lawson. Helen, we definitely need to get you on one of these at some point. Katie Coombs says, we absolutely need you to come and join us on a live stream and share some of your well-being knowledge, because we all need a bit of that at the moment. Helen's question is, she's always felt that investing is something that other people do. I can really relate to that.
Yes.
Rich people, middle-class people. Can we have some words of reassurance for Helen before I ask you the next question?
Okay, so investing is definitely something that is available to everybody. And the reason for that is because of these things now. These smart things, these phones, now mean that you can begin to invest from the comfort of your own home. But you first just need to spend some time understanding, like we mentioned earlier, what on earth the language of investing is about. What is it people are actually investing in? Ultimately, they're investing money into companies, ownerships in companies, okay? And you, with very little money, it could be £100 per month or, whatever it is, can get involved in doing that as cheaply as possible from the comfort of your own home, from your own mobile device. So it's something that's now available and democratized, available to pretty much everybody who wants to really get involved and who can start with little bits of money. So if I could have got involved in investing, when I did back in 2008/9, absolutely anyone can now, is how I look at it.
I think I'd just add
Great stuff.
One piece to add to that. There's a book called Quit Like a Millionaire by Christy Shen, who came over from China with nothing to Canada and went from absolutely zero, living 6 of them in a hut in China and then fleeing the revolution, to becoming a millionaire and one of Canada's earliest retirees. And I guess I'm seen as kind of middle class. I'm kind of not, because my family was a working class, but that would be a great example of someone who's done it and has done it from a situation of nothing.
Alan, whereabouts in the UK are you living at the moment?
Yeah, let's not go there. I live in Berkshire currently. Yes, I realise that's the most middle class. Yes, I'm in Berkshire. I'm going to Waitrose for my avocados.
Hey, look, I don't judge. I just ask the questions, Alan.
Yeah, whatever. I'm leaving soon.
So look, we're going to get some questions in now, please. There's been a couple of questions already, but I want you to ask some questions of Ken and Alan. Both of them have got some great insights about blogging, how to get started, how to make money out of blogging. And we're going to ask Ken you know, once he started blogging, what he learned. If he was starting a blog today based on his learning experiences, what kind of stuff would he be thinking about, so that we can all learn from that. And also, I think we'll get the chance to check in with Ken about what happened since he started the blog and some of the stuff that he's doing now, because he's got some amazing free resources on his website, which we'll get the chance to visit after this live stream, which is cool. The question I think I wanted to ask, firstly, Laura says that she's normal and she started investing last year. Like,
Yes,
Laura,
she did.
I saw you
Laura
with a carrot with a fork that was, you were doing some sort of magic trick with it. That's not entirely normal, but we get the point. I love it. Jolene's question is similar to Lisa's, actually. Ken, is it worth investing if you haven't got a lot of money to invest? You know, what if your monthlies go to, you know, you've got £25 left over at the end of every month, because, you know, many of us have experienced and still do experience being really tight with cash and not having spare money. You know, if you're starting from scratch or you don't have enough money to invest, some of us are starting from behind the line, of course, because we owe money too. You know, give us some advice for families that haven't got much money, or they're right at the beginning of the journey.
Yeah, so I'd say that the thing to prioritize if you've got very little money is your cash flow for your family at the very beginning. You want to make sure that you have enough potentially in the event that things happen. Okay, so some refer to this as the emergency fund, that sort of stuff. You want to just make sure you have some bit of a buffer built up before you then take the leap to potentially invest through the stock market, for example. So that's the first thing I'd recommend. Do a bit of a cash flow analysis. By that, I mean, sit down and make yourself a cup of tea, have a conversation internally as to how much money you will need in the event that something happens, okay? How would you kind of get by? If that money is, say, a month, 3 months, or even up to 6 months of expenses put aside, then your priority at the very beginning is making sure that you are putting that aside first before you really start to venture in and invest through the stock market. That's what I would do. So.
Great stuff. So it's your emergency cash. Let's work on that first. And then once you've got that as a foundation, then think about investing. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So look, let's get into blogging 34, which you were then able to make some choices about how you spend your time. My gut feel says you're probably busier than you've ever been. But how did it all begin? And you know, you started writing the blog. What was behind the blog? What was the passion that was behind that? And what happened with the blog?
Yeah, so I didn't start the blog as with a strategy and a plan and all these things. No, I was on a flight to Philadelphia for work, and I just fell on that flight, 36,000 feet, looking out the window. I just felt I was missing something in my life. I didn't know what that thing was. When I got back with my wife, we sat down and just thought, you know what? I've been reading people's blogs for some time, and I'd love to actually, you know, I'm not very good at writing. I got a C at English GCSE, but do you know what? I'm just going to have a go at just writing something and see where it goes, right? My wife, when we sat down and brainstormed names, came up with the words "The Humble Penny." And I said, there's no way that name's available on GoDaddy or one of these websites. And we checked and it was there. And so we bought the name and I just started, you know, I went through the process of setting up a WordPress website. Again, for me, it was really a case of, right, I'm going to try and learn how this thing works, and then gradually start to experiment and explore what I saw the Americans doing. So some of the American sites was, you know, starting to explore blogging as a way to make money. I thought, wow, what if I could actually start this thing, start to write about money and things I was going through, but at the same time, potentially turning this thing one day to something that maybe even made some money. And so that's how I got started. And it started with just one blog post. And my strategy was to commit 2 hours per week towards blogging and writing blogging content. And that's been it, you know, keeping that consistency. And the more you do that, and the more I've done that every week, and what you notice is that people think compounding actually applies just to money, so compounding interest. What you find is that it actually also applies to your time. So if you sow 2 hours per week, 2 hours per day into anything you're doing, over 1 year, over 2 years, what you find is that you have a massive snowball. And that's what's happened. You know, it's suddenly grown. And by doing that, we've then expanded and got into many other things I hope we can talk about on this call as well.
What are the things that you must have on your blog? So let's say you've got some consistency of writing and posting. What are the other things that you say you've got to make sure, if you want your blog to be successful and to make money for you, you've got to make sure that you, what will be those kind of things?
I think what really, and this I've learned this as well with YouTube, which we can talk about in a minute, is authenticity matters a lot. Authenticity. So people want to know who you are. They want to know what your story is. They want to know, like, what are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? They don't want to know that you're just Superman, or, you know, you're just a person who has it all going on. They want to know what are the things you struggle with, and they'd ideally prefer if your blog was as personable as possible, because then what that does is it builds a connection. And if you can connect, if you can link that with storytelling, then you have almost a recipe for some potential success, because then people like that they can just read it and it flows in normal language, and they can feel like they know who you are. You tell them a bit about yourself and your little bit of detail, like what you've been doing today, what your kids have been up to, and what have you. That all those things come together to create what's essentially good content. And provided they're leaving with, it's over time, a transformation, i.e. someone has to read it and feel they're leaving with something, then you potentially have the recipe for success at doing it.
Ken, I've got butterflies. I feel like that advice is outstanding. Alan, what are your busiest blog posts, and what's your take on this thing about blogging, and what have you learned?
So I think one thing I've learned is that if you build it, they will come is a massive lie. If you build it, no one will come until you promote it. Yes. So your job does not end when you click publish on the blog post and it goes out there. That's when your job starts. Then you've got to promote it. The second thing I've learned is it takes a lot of energy to get people to your blog to read it. Yes. So when they're there, get them to sign up to an email capture form so that you can then bring them back easier than going via social media. Email capture form, MailChimp is free up to 2,000. Get that on your site from day one and start building up a mailing list. That will become your most valuable asset as you go forward. It's an incredible business asset.
It's a critical business asset. In fact, I'll give you a very practical example. I was speaking to, working with a brand, because we're doing sponsored work now, working with various brands who approach us for to kind of work with the Humble Pen and have access to the audience. And the thing they're really interested in, for example, is how big is your email list? And so that email list is almost currency. It's almost kind of leverage for negotiating good terms with various parties that will start to approach you as you start to see some success.
Very nice. Couple of fantastic questions about blogging that I want to share with you guys. The first question, I think this might be one for you, Alan, and I bet, Ken, you might have a view as well. For making a course, how do you get over the mental block of thinking that there are so many other people with better courses on the same topic? So David's asking this question. For example, if he started a personal finance course, how can he feel better about not just sending people to Ken's course? Hi, Ken, Simon, and Alan, and thanks for the great conversation. So David's kind of saying he's got some ideas, he's got some content, but what's the point in starting? Because Ken's already, a few furlongs ahead, and Barney's got some amazing stuff, and these American sites and so on. What do you think, Alan? What would you say to David?
So I think I have run courses all over the world and done all sorts of stuff. When I was starting, I was not arrogant enough to go, I am the best presentation skills course that exists. I know that my spin, my way of doing it is my way of doing it. And I studied, I read the books, I practiced, I'd learnt, and I thought I had something that I could teach someone. And I think my biggest thing was, I can't remember who said it. Someone said it to me, that if you're teaching someone, you just need to be one step ahead, because then you can go, here's the next step, and you take the next step as they do it, and you can constantly be one step ahead and guiding them through it. You're never going to be the best in the world, but you're unique and you can guide people through it. So I just did it. I was like, I'm just going to teach it. Who said, like, one of my biggest clients was Microsoft, and I was teaching them presence and communication. Like, I didn't ever think of it of I need confidence and I need to be the best in the world. I just thought, I'm going to do the best I can and I'm going to guide them through it.
Alan, I remember that because I remember you saying to me that you just needed to be better than them, just to show them something and teach them something. And then I remember changing that into, Alan, you're teaching Microsoft PowerPoint to Microsoft executives. This is my favorite sentence of that training business that you ran. Ken, what gives people the right to set up a training course? Sorry, Alan, go ahead.
Just very quickly, I'd just say, if you read the top 3 books on any subject, you will know more than 95% of the population. So if you want to learn presenting, read Zen Presentations, read a couple of the other books, and you will know more than nearly everyone else out there. And that is a simple strategy. Just read the top 3 books and you know more than most people ever will.
I love it. Ken, what do we say to David? What gave you the right to start these courses, especially the YouTube ones? Let's talk about the YouTube ones that you're doing.
So I think a lot of what the people who do well on these platforms, in blogging, YouTubing, and so on, the people who do really well, are doing well now and in the future, are those who focus on radical authenticity. Okay, by that I mean, what happens over time is that you will start to develop audiences that are only really interested in what you have to share. They're kind of your true fans. They're super keen on what you have to share. They're interested in your voice, your story, all the elements come together, and in your expertise and authority. Because over time, you would have developed that likability and that trust with them. And what that does is it builds a connection. And provided you understand what the audience's problem is, then your goal is to solve the audience's problem. You're asking them because they like you and they trust you. You're asking them, how can I give you a transformation through my resources? So for example, when we create courses, which we are doing right now and every single month, I am always asking our audience, what is it you are struggling with? Because I'm not creating the course for me, I'm making it for you. What are you struggling with? And not a lot of course creators do that. They just create what they think the audience want without doing the legwork of asking them and even speaking in their own language and giving them what they want. That's why the people who will come to me, or the people who come to you will come to you, that sort of stuff.
That's a great point. And Ken, look, there's a cracking question from a friend of ours, great friend of Alan and myself, Graham. So Graham Carter down in sunny Portsmouth I think it actually, you are really well placed to answer this question based on the video courses that you're doing now. So he's asking, how effective is blogging in reaching a target audience, given the rise of the vlogs and of YouTube and podcasting and so on? You know, what's the best way to get traction for and promote your blog in a very noisy world? And you've got sort of a blogging hat and a vlogging hat and a video creation thing going on it. You know, what's your sense of how that sits? You know, how does blogging sit alongside the video content now?
So the thing you've got to always remember with blogging is that you own your blogging platform or your blog itself. You actually own that. My YouTube channel, I don't own. YouTube can turn me off any day they want, and I'd lose all the subscribers I've spent the last however months working to build and to grow. And with your blog, you own that thing. It's your, think of it as almost the HQ, as it were. It's where you demonstrate your authority. It's where people can reference and come and check up on, you know, what you do and that sort of stuff. And everything else is there to either lead or drive traffic to the blog or drive traffic to what you want them to head towards, whether it's a product or a service or that sort of stuff. So I always see the blog as kind of the heart of it. It's the thing that you own. It's the asset that you might even one day sell. Because if someone comes and says, hey, I love this digital asset you've built, this business you've built, I'd love to buy it. They'd want to know what's the domain you've got, what's the trademark you've got to that domain, that sort of stuff. That's what holds the value, okay? Although you're marketing it yourself and it's self-hosted, it carries a different type of leverage. It might not grow the audience a lot quicker. What your goal is, though, is to use the other platforms, like I use YouTube, for example, to drive traffic to the blog, which helps me to grow my email list, which helps me to drive my academy, all of those things. But the blog remains the central point. Does that answer the question, I hope?
I think that's a cracking answer. And you've reminded me, and if I don't mention this, Jack is going to get very grumpy with me. So next Tuesday, we have Christy Shen, who is the author of Quit Like a Millionaire that Alan mentioned earlier on. Christy's going to join the live stream and share with us her story of, moving to Canada, writing a blog, becoming a published author, and some of the amazing things that have happened since she's written that blog. And, it'll be really interesting for us to compare some of her insights with yours. And I think I've got a feeling that there's going to be some crossover. So if people are smart, they're going to pick up some of these key points. Ken, in a second, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about your website.
Yep.
I guess, if someone is starting a blog now, the thing I'm picking up from both of you is it's not so much about thinking about monetizing it straight away. It's more about having a consistency, being authentic, and choosing the topics that you have passion for. I mean, Alan, is that your experience? Because you've built a list actually really quickly. I'm amazed at the speed at which your subscriber list has come about. I thought that it would take a bit longer to hit that number. What would you sort of agree with Ken, or you had a different experience of that, the mindset of the blog?
So I think a blog is a longer term play. If you need to earn money now, blogging is not the way to go. Sell an actual service, sell something straight away. A blog is a longer term play. Doesn't mean it's a great thing to do. Like if you've got a job and you're spending an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a week, and you can build it over the years, it can be an incredible way to go as you build it. But this is not a way to get instant cash.
Yeah, can I just add to that?
Yeah,
Another
please.
way I view a blog is as the marketing department of a business. Okay, so it's a very, if you view it, that's one way to view it. If you're a business person, it's to think of that blog as an element of your marketing plan. Because if you're able to see it that way, then the question then is well, what is your business? What is the business behind the blog? Is it what is it you're selling, or that sort of stuff? What's the value that you're offering people? What's the problem that you're potentially solving? Because if there exists a problem and the value transfer, then the role of the blog, if you're a business person, remember this is from a business perspective, is to then market and market those services and products and solve that problem, which ties into your point anyway, Alan.
Ken, I can't believe that an hour has gone by already. I could literally carry on having this conversation for the rest of the night. I've learned so much from chatting to you both, and Alan, I get to chat to you all the time, but having you and Ken in the same room for this conversation has been absolutely brilliant. Digitally speaking, of course, because as we've learned, you're in Berkshire. So I guess, Ken, you've been very gracious with your time and your insights. Appreciate that very much. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to shamelessly plug the project that you're working on your website. We've put a link in the thread. When people go to your website, what tips have you got? What should people be looking for?
Yeah, so we have so the humblepenny.com, which is our blog, which you can check out. On the homepage, we have some free courses if you're interested. Somebody who wants to start a blog, there's a free course there. It's a 7-day course. You can go through step-by-step instructions for how you can go about starting a blog. We also have a free practical money course if you're kind of working towards managing your finances today, around budgeting, investing, that sort of stuff. It's a 10-day course. Feel free to sign up to that. Parallel to the blog, we run a YouTube channel at The Humble Penny on YouTube. So please, if you're watching this, make sure you subscribe. It just helps us grow the channel. Like, I would love for you to become a subscriber. So check it out. We work exceptionally hard in making sure we create content that's really, really excellent and for people to help people really move forward. That's a YouTube channel. Then new for 2020, we launched Financial Joy Academy. Okay, this is a paid service. It's essentially a membership program for action takers, people who are determined to really achieve in their own lives, no matter what's going on, achieve financial independence in the next decade, in these 10 years ahead. Those people we are meeting weekly. We're offering them group coaching. We've got courses, masterclasses. We're holding them accountable. So for example, our members wake up every day at 5 a.m. and we all go on a Zoom call and we all work. We put the mute on and we're holding each other accountable. I'm not messing about. I show up. My wife shows up 5 a.m. every single day. Okay. So these are people who are action takers, who want to build successful blogs, successful YouTube channels, digital businesses, who want to fast track that journey towards financial independence and not just relying on investing through the stock market. That's what we do at financialjoyacademy.com. So yeah, please check them out. You know, depending on what you're interested in, the free stuff, the paid stuff, feel free to check it out.
I love that, Ken. There's a lot of love for you in the thread. Katie Coons definitely wants you to come back. And Kerry signed up. She says, thank you very much. She's also said bonkers. So I think breaking news. Yeah, possibly you, Alan. I think it may have been the 5 a.m. thing. It may have been you. Either would potentially be accurate. Breaking news for my eldest. There's actually 2 5 o'clocks in the day. So I'm looking forward to sharing that information with him a little bit later. So I'm going to go to Alan very shortly for some closing thoughts. Ken, it's been absolutely amazing, and we cannot wait to invite you to another pop-up business school as soon as the live events happen again. And I think, you know, if I was a betting man, I'd say there's going to be a part 2, and we'd love to get you back. And your offer to us to come and participate in some of the stuff that you're doing, the answer, of course, is absolutely yes. We'd be thrilled. Just to share with everybody that all of our content is going through our survival guide, which is sitting on the Pop-Up Business School website. This is all about helping small businesses and new businesses survive, but also thrive in the most challenging times that we've ever faced. So, and that's exactly where this video is going to go. So if you think there's someone in your friends and family network that would be interested to hear what Ken and Alan had to say about money, about blogging, and a whole bunch of other stuff, then please share that with them. On Thursday this week, we have got, in fact, someone that came to the UK, I think at about the same age as you did. I'm not sure if you've met Halima, Ken, but Halima is the queen of Instagram. She's got something like 16,000 followers that she's built up on Instagram, and she's running training courses through her websites and so on. She's going to share with us her experiences of running an online course, but also she's going to share the tips and tricks of Instagram, which is something that she also trains people in, and she's giving us an hour on Thursday. Can't wait for that. And of course, the amazing Christy Shen, who's been all over the telly and the papers as well, is going to join us on Tuesday next week.
We like Christy.
Yeah, we do. She's amazing. So, look, Alan, closing thoughts from you. What's in your mind as a result of the stuff that we've chatted about tonight? I know that there is something in your mind because you've got that look on your face. I have some wisdom to share look, which I've known to love.
Well, the closing thought and the closing comment, I think, is what Ken embodies is that he takes action repeatedly over time. And he's been building that blog for years and putting 2 hours a week in and working on building the YouTube and putting it in. And it's the compounding of your actions over time that will get you there. If you want to get good at investing, read half an hour a day and then discuss it with someone. And if you do that consistently over time, it's unbelievable how that will improve your knowledge and position. If you want to build a blog, do a blog, work on it, release one a week, and compound that over the weeks that come. And it's those small actions that you repeatedly take day in, day out that will get you where you want to be. So start today, start compounding.
Get started. Yeah.
I love that. Great. So find out more at thehumblepenny.com. Check out our survival guide. Thank you very much to everybody for contributing your questions, because it's the questions that you ask that help us to make this a richer live for everybody. Ken, you absolutely rock. Someone called Mary has said she thought it was a great live. Do you know Mary?
Sounds like my wife.
Yes. It is Mary, and please say thank you to Mary for lending you to us for this evening. Thanks again, everybody. See you on Thursday.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.